Again was a new phase in a sense for Cry, because in some ways it reflected the changes that happened in 1990, because up until, ever since Ripon passed away, which was 94 to 98, Cry had become a very internally focused organization. We kind of really focused on kind of getting things internally together. The Mancom also was extremely internally focused, dealing with issues sometimes on a day-to-day, week-to-week, month-to-month basis. So it hadn't really looked out, and with the coming in of new people, both at the leadership level as well as down the line, we began to recruit people. And again, that the story was repeated in a sense of the new and the old, and the finding of the balance, the finding of the synergy, the finding of that creative energy, that point at which creativity and energy gets released by the coming together of seemingly disparate groups, So that whole journey started again. It was new, the leadership also, people coming in, the form of the organization also hadn't really taken shape. It was still, there were different functions that were operating in isolation, operating separately. The next really year and a half was really spent kind of bringing shape again to the organization from the point of view of now growth and going forward, of actually again taking that next step in terms of scaling, certainly in terms of scaling, but really in terms of engaging with the world as it were both today and tomorrow, and beginning to kind of look outward, look at what was happening in the external world. We'd certainly been doing that as far as the field work was concerned, but we hadn't been doing that in our resources. We hadn't been doing that in looking at our systems and processes internally, systems and processes, technology, all these new things we hadn't really been engaging with. And so really the next 1.5 years was really spent kind of giving shape to the organization that would allow it to do that. And so two things really were, there were two interventions really which were, I think, fairly critical, which were kind of were called internally in Cry institution building processes. Really, I think the essence of institution building really was about all those areas of the organization which are linked to the organization's spirit, its vision, its the soul of the organization, and the formation of this, the kind of weaving together of this larger community, and its vision is really the essence of what institution building was with Cry. And therefore, in a sense, those processes were always about people. And there were two levels at which this institution building processes began to take shape. One was at the leadership level itself, which was binding together or creating, in a sense, a leadership group of people from different walks of life that could come together and find that common link, that which would bind us together, that which would enable us to actually bring our different energies, resources and perspectives and kind of focus it for Cry, and so that was one process that started, and therefore actually getting different people to engage with each other, creating spaces for that to happen, to begin to understand each other, because they were so different, people were so different, and through that process really collectively beginning to think about the future of Cry, think about the shape of the organization for the future. So that was one process. And the other was really what started out as an HR process actually, but I think became much more of an institutional organizational process, it started out as a process of the performance management, creating a performance management system, which was really a process by which it would enable us as individuals, as teams, as regions, as functions, etc., to begin to be able to actually evaluate the work that we were doing and focus it therefore, to plan it, to direct it, to evaluate it. We recognize that we could not do that. You cannot just evaluate work in isolation. You cannot have objectives in isolation. They have to finally all find their source in the mission of the organization. The mission of the organization has has to lie within the framework of the values. So what makes it uniquely CRY? What makes it uniquely CRY will be the values really that in a sense give it its underpin the mission. Yeah? But those values can't be something that just comes out of the head of any one person. Yeah? And I think we understood very clearly that up until the time that Ripon was there, Ripon embodied them. Ripon held the values, he embodied the vision of the organization. And people therefore docked into what Ripon was doing and followed him in a sense. Yeah? And I think one of the things, positives that CRY drew from that time was that CRY had to learn to find its vision and its values and all of that in the larger organization and locate it in the larger organization and out of just it being in one person. Which I think a lot of NGOs struggle with because they get linked to the founder and that, and founders normally live for a much longer period of time. This exercise really became about, first, the heart of this exercise became about understanding this mission and creating a shared understanding of what is this mission, what does it mean for us, and collectively evolving for ourselves what are the values by which we would live. What are the values that would govern how we would do the work, how we would accomplish this mission. And we did it as an exercise across the country. So Janaki and myself, Janaki, our consultant, and myself, we went actually to every region, and every region had a workshop where every single employee, no matter what you were doing, was involved in this workshop. It was the first set of regional workshops that kind of started. I think now it's emerged into the kickoffs and it's a regular process for objective setting. But at that point in time, it was more than just objective, it was actually defining mission and values. And it was a really interesting exercise because at one level there was disparity in how people were seeing some of the key elements of this mission, what the values would be, etc. But once we went across the country and worked literally with every one of the 250 employees that were there, it was quite beautiful to see actually that at the end of the day, no matter how different the regions are, and the regions are very different and people are very different, and you had people who were new just into the organization, people who had been around for 15, 16, 17 years in the organization, people at different levels, different, come from corporate sector, development sector, art world, communications, etc. There was not a lot of difference between how people were holding that mission. And therefore somewhere that the mission had been held collectively over these years. And this was the first time we were actually articulating what it would mean for us, and actually putting it out and articulating the words. So these two processes, in a sense, that when I think came and emerged from what we had learned post-Ripon, that really leadership and vision were actually collective processes, were fundamentally collective, were community processes, and were about building the larger community CRY, and were about the community shaping and owning and holding. And in a sense that also set the ground for what then came to be and what has come to be the processes of evolution of strategy and the manner in which strategy is evolved in CRY, the democratic processes that the organization is really seeking to kind of seed for the future, for leadership, for decision making, etc. Found its roots really in that time of recognizing that vision and leadership were fundamentally collective. And in many ways that the mission of CRY was not a mission for us outside. The mission of CRY and the values of CRY were fundamentally internal. We had to first live it ourselves before we could go out there and do anything, let alone preach it anywhere. And so by around 2000 really, the year 2000 was when we finally restructured even at the leadership level. And for the first time in CRY, throughout the 90s there had been an imbalance. At some point in time it was resources that had got the focus, and then development support was kind of up and down. At some point in time development support got the focus and resources was here and there. But this was really the first time that both areas kind of were coming together, and when we were looking at the future, we were looking at them in tandem.
This decade saw national level alliances for the marketing of brand CRY. One of the fundraising events of CRY that exponentially grew during this period was the CRY Cadence Corporate Cricket Challenge. What started in the year 2001 as a small initiative of a CRY voluntary group comprising employees at Cadence Design Systems now unites 100 corporates on some of the best pitches across the globe in Delhi, Chandigarh, Bangalore, and London. In 2001, a strategic partnership with Archie's Greetings and Gifts to outsource, manufacture, and retailing of CRY products opens CRY's reach and market share. In 2002, CRY's website www.cry.org is revamped and re-engineered to be more user-friendly and interactive. Online payment gateway was introduced, thus enabling any individual across the globe to contribute with the click of a mouse. In the same year, face-to-face marketing is introduced as a new channel for CRY to reach out to individuals. This helps reduce the cost of raising funds from first-time donors. In 2002, the Citibank relationship was expanded to become a model for advocacy-based partnerships with corporates. Under Citibank's Citi Junior Account program, CRY gets a contribution each time a Citibank customer opens an account for their child. In 2005, CRY Titan Industries Limited initiated an About Time campaign by developing 2 watch designs with the pinwheel. Proceeds from the sale of these watches were contributed to CRY. Also in 2005, in another advocacy-based initiative, the Procter & Gamble CRY partnership called Project Shiksha, Education as a Right of Every Child, was promoted through celebrity endorsements, national and regional TV media. 50 paise on the sale of every large pack of Tide, Ariel, Vicks, Pantene, Rejoice and Pampers for 3 months was donated to CRY, making a total of Rs 1.26 crores, which was utilized towards 10 CRY initiatives across the country. Padhega India, mile sabko shiksha ka hak.
In many ways, the new millennium was very significant for CRY because it was really, in a sense, the next journey, the next turning point for CRY in terms of the kind of changes that the organization would see and the kind of changes that CRY would need to make to be prepared to prepare itself really to fully realize the potential that CRY had. And CRY, in these, by which time, almost 20 years now, had built such a strong equity within the larger public. It was tremendous equity for CRY. We knew that through research that we had done, that people knew CRY, people were favorably disposed to CRY. We had built tremendous equity within the development sector through the partners and the support, the organizations we had supported, through the networks that we were part of. The fact that, in a sense, CRY was an Indian, independent, indigenous organization was really, really critical in terms of the role that CRY could actually play out there for child rights. And we recognized that in many ways we hadn't done justice to all of that. And that really, if we were to make the kind of impact that we wanted to make, if we were to be true to the aspirations with which CRY was set up, then it was going to be vital for us to really look at the organization, to craft the organization in a manner that it would be agile, nimble, responsive, creative, passionate, enabled, to be able to go out there and make the kind of difference that we wanted to make, build the kind of movement that we knew needed to be built, had to be built, and that we knew we had the capacity to facilitate. And so therefore, in a sense, perhaps Gujarat, the earthquake in Gujarat, in some ways was were kind of forced CRY to kind of look at this and not delay these processes any longer and take some of the very, very hard decisions that we needed to take to make this possible, to shape the organization, reshape the organization. I think the two toughest decisions that we had to take as a result of this was, one, we had to take a call to say that for 2 years we would actually scale back on what the kind of incomes we would raise, so that it would allow us over 2 years to make the investments, to train people, because people had to be retrained. These new partnerships had to be built, they had to be developed, they had to be kind of strengthened, you know. So in a sense, initially we were going to have to make investments and not expect direct returns, but expect those returns in year 3, year 4 onwards. So if we were scaling back on the income that we were raising, we were going to have to take a very, very difficult decision to scale back on the deployments we were making in the field, which meant we were going to have to cut back on projects and cut even on the projects that we were continuing to support. We would actually have to scale back the quantum of our support, which was hugely difficult, you know. But what it allowed us to do again was, it allowed us, we said that we can't just do it randomly, and therefore we would look at each of these areas, look at our partnerships and begin to see again which ones align strategically, which were the ones that were now ready to move on, you know, which were the ones that we saw long-term potential with, you know, which were the ones that we could find alternate funding for. So to really craft and to really look at it in that depth, but it was extremely difficult because pulling out of organizations that you worked with, scaling back when you know that that's going to directly impact what you're doing. Perhaps it's going to impact a set of children. It's going to impact a community mobilization. It's really hard, and CRY works so closely. Our development support teams work so closely with our partners that it was a very, very painful thing, the process that we had to go through. But we knew we had to go through it. And the way we did it was, we went out to our partners, we had meetings, and we shared openly and transparently with them why we were doing what we were doing and what we were going to do. Because we felt that they needed to be part of this process, you know, and they needed to understand we were not being arbitrary here. And I think in many ways that deepened the partnerships. Even with people that we pulled out of, we continued to have, with a lot of them, we continued to keep that partnership going through the networks, etc., simply because we had done that, you know. And I'm not saying we had some huge problems also with partners in terms of them feeling betrayed, let down, all of that by CRY. The second impossibly difficult decision, perhaps one of the most difficult things that any of us, I think, who were in CRY have ever gone through, was that because we had outsourced and were moving out of so many operations, there were a significant number of people, almost 1/3, I think, out of 250, about 62 to 67 people who became redundant in a sense, that there were no more roles left for them. We tried as far as possible to accommodate people within the organization, but there were a set of people that there were really no roles for. And for an NGO to do something like this, I think was extremely hard. I think the way we decided to approach it, one was, of course, we ran a proper VRS scheme so that we knew that our commitment, yes, our commitment was to the mission, and we had to do what we knew was right by the mission for the future. But these were people who had been with CRY. These were CRY people. These were part of the CRY, as we used to call it, the CRY family earlier, but the CRY community today. You know, a lot of them were the second and third employees of CRY. You know, and I think it made it so much more harder for us because, you know, we hadn't been there at that time. They were the ones who had been there. They were the ones who had gone through all those, you know, completely difficult experiences. And suddenly, the organization was saying these roles no more exist in the organization. You know? And so we were committed to therefore ensuring a VRS scheme that would allow them to kind of tide over financially, you know, secure them for at least a year and a half, so that it would kind of allow them to make alternate arrangements. But we decided to go one step further and we said, look, here's CRY, we have all this goodwill out there. We have partners and donors and people who run businesses, etc. Why don't we go out like we've always done, you know, to our own partners and see whether they have opportunities. We can explain what we're doing and there may be opportunities there, and because it's coming from CRY, people may perhaps respond positively. And we were just overwhelmed with the kind of response that we got, because out of the 67, I think with the exception of 12 people, we were able to place everybody else. But it was so poignant in a sense, because when we shared all of this with the entire organization, and then specifically with the people that were going to, in a sense, not have roles in CRY anymore. And perhaps it might have been easier if they had been really violently angry with us, But the overriding emotion was one of why, we're part of the CRY family, Isn't there any way in which they understood? I think that was it. I think they made it, at some level they made it easier for us, and also it was difficult because they did trust that we would not do something like this unless it was relevant. We explained why we were doing it. They could see the logic of it. But the fact was, it was like, that's fine, but can there not be a place for us? After the VRS, and with the people that remained, we went through this process in detail across the organization. Again, going location to location with every single person in each location, in workshops, talking about why we were making the changes we were making, what changes were going to be required, and what was the call that was being made on people in terms of the changes that they would need to go through in their own areas of work. And we just created spaces for people to articulate what their fears, their concerns, and all of that were. I remember it was very interesting, because we did this around August, September, across the organization, and we said that in that time our half year was in Jan, because we were working June to June, and we said around the end of June we'd come back again and take stock of how we'd done, and so people had, each region had come up with a long list of concerns that they had about these changes and what was going to happen and all the pitfalls and all the things that were going to go wrong. And we kept those, and we said when we come back we'll review things, And I still remember going around in the end of January into these workshops, to the regions, and the overwhelming sense was of this release of energy. That somewhere in all of these things that people had gotten so bogged down doing, which were not part of their job, and in a sense had gotten so far removed. I mean, if I'm spending all my time worrying about a mailing that was going out, rather than actually going out and talking to donors and to individuals and the public about child rights, then my sense of that link with the mission also sometimes can get disconnected. So suddenly, in people having to be more focused on the mission, get more involved with that, etc., find creative ways, new ways, there's been this real release of energy, and people were doing new things, they had discovered new challenges. It was almost like we had been through the worst, and people had discovered potential they didn't know existed, which was a tremendously empowering thing. And so at the end of this workshops, at each region I would say, okay, we've gone through all of this, so I'm just going to put up the concerns that we had at the beginning of this process, and just, what are they, where are we vis-a-vis them? And I put up their slides, and they'd be looking at it and going, really? We were concerned about that? Really? We were concerned about it? Because almost 90% of them were non-issue. We also said that we would make fundamental investments of technology. If we were going to outsource a lot of things and we needed to improve the quality of communications or engagement internally, we'd need to make those. We'd look at some operations that we'd computerize some operations to again support and enable efficiency and effectiveness, and intensive capacity building, retrain people. So that was really, I think, over the next 2 years, over the next 3 years really, it was really the journey of putting these, what it said, in place. And we saw the benefits of that by year 3 itself. When you look at the numbers itself, you can see it from the resource mobilization point of view, even from the development support point of view, in terms of the focus that it provided us. The focus became certainly in development support, child rights, we focused much more energy into building perspective, into our own understanding, and therefore building perspectives of partners, and transforming the nature of what we were doing outside also to a child rights movement oriented coalition building perspective. the investment in the setting up of the advocacy cell, and building that whole area of advocacy and policy. 2004 was our 25th anniversary, 25th year, and so for that Cry Day, 29th of January, 8th of January, we had for the first time got the entire organization together. The whole of Cry came together in Mumbai. And the first day was really spent looking at reflecting on Cry, the Cry stories, and looking at the future. And the second day, like we always do around Rupan's birthday, which is Founders Day on the 31st, this time we advanced it, was honouring people who had been in Cry and had their landmark years of 5, 10, 15 years, etc. But we had invited people who had been part of Cry's inception. So Rupan's sister, who had been a trustee of Cry, Neera Kapoor, Anita Devitra, who was Rupan's friend from school and college and had been working with him there and was a trustee of Cry and then very much a part of the first 10 years of Cry, intricately involved in Cry. Kumari, who had been part of the early 90s and the WooCom, as it were. So we had invited people like them to be part of this. And I think for me, for all of us actually, what was so affirming were people like Anita and Sherry was also there. Anita and Neera, but as they came and they experienced Cry and they heard everything that was happening, then coming up and sharing that, we were here 25 years ago and yet Cry is so different. You're doing things that we didn't even dream of, and yet the spirit is just the same. And I think again, it's to me it was such a affirmation of what the people that started Cry, and I'm not just talking about Rupan, but all these people, the people that were volunteers, the people perhaps who none of us will ever know who are part of Cry. What they did and what they built and what got built into the very heart and DNA of the organization is alive and well, And you see that year after year. You come to Cry Day and you sit down and you listen to the stories, and you listen to the stories of people who've just come in to Cry, and every one of them are touching that part of realizing their full potential, realizing and discovering potential they never knew, being part of transformation and change. It's built on this sense of inspiration and the belief that anything is possible.
On the occasion of its 25th year, Cry initiated a citizens' movement to restore the rights of children on 28th January 2004. Starting with the launch of an election advocacy campaign to create awareness on child rights in the 2004 Lok Sabha elections, a child rights charter of demands was developed and Cry met with various political parties to ensure it was included in their party manifestos. Apart from physically reaching out to people, a micro website was also launched to get people to participate in ensuring that the Child Rights Charter is given priority. Around its 25th year celebration, Cry also introduced its symbol, the pinwheel called the Free a Child Chakri, to represent freedom for India's children. Ace Jewels partnered Cry by designing a pendant and earring set inspired by the Chakri pinwheel unit. Cry also spread the message of child rights to almost 42 million homes in India on 26 January 2005, Republic Day, through a 7-hour Cry telethon on Sony TV. It was India's first ever interactive social responsibility show, wherein celebrities and personalities from different fields appealed to audiences to contribute time or money towards changing children's lives. Mera Bhi To Adhikar Hai of the music album Asha Wali Dhoop was composed by Adesh Srivastava as part of the telethon. It has lyrics by Javed Akhtar and sung by leading singers of the industry along with their children. CRI's growing stature as an institution is obvious from the amplifications that it was able to make during this decade. In the year 2000, the National Alliance for the Fundamental Right to Education was founded by CRI, Pratham, the National Foundation of India, the National Law School of India, UNICEF, the Aga Khan Foundation, and Save the Children Fund UK. Today, it has taken the form of a people's movement and Nafre Jan Andolan, as it is more popularly known, advocates free and compulsory education up to the high school level. In 2002, CRI participated in the United Nations General Assembly's special session for children. In 2004, CRI was invited to present at the House of Lords, London. The presentation was titled The Impact of Globalization on Child Rights in India. In 2005, the National Consultation on Justice for Children was held on November 13th to 15th at the Jamia Hamdard University, New Delhi. This consultation was an attempt at engaging with different segments of society, NGOs, activists, political leaders, academics, judiciary, media, health professionals, and the corporate sector towards jointly ensuring a more just world for Indian children.
And I think when I look back on the journey of CRI and from where it started in 1979 to where it is today, the thing that has stayed constant, no matter how much we have changed and no matter how much we have grown, I think again go back to the very qualities that are in the DNA of CRI, which is that passion, that commitment, that belief that anything is possible and we can do anything and we have the potential to make the difference. That sense that we can make that difference.